Welcome to Beyond the Clef. I'm your host, David, and I'm here with Susan Meyer Patterson. Now, Susan is from McCullough Junior High Band in Conroe ISD. Now, Susan, at the filming of this, we're at the Director's Choice booth live at the convention right now in 2017. You just got some great news yesterday about you and your kids. Tell us a little bit about that.
I did. I am so excited, over the top today, that yesterday at the state honor band competition, the SMSE competition, we were named third in the state. So proud, so excited. I'm proud of my kids. We had an incredible year, and it just feels great that they got to be recognized. So,
well, I'm really proud to have you out now just to talk about that.
Thank you.
And to be able to share your knowledge with everybody. It's really, really important, I think, to get these across to the young. I'm a young band director. I'm trying to figure this out myself, and I would love to have a program like yours one day.
Thank you.
So one of the things that I'm working on, and I've always been working on, it's a big priority for me, is building relationships throughout the program. So we're going to talk about that a little bit.
Cool.
And just first, now McCullough is 7th and 8th grade junior high, is that correct?
Right, McCullough's 7th and 8th. Our students are with us for 2 years. They start band in 5th grade at intermediate campuses.
And how many intermediates feed you?
We have 4 intermediates that feed our school.
Okay.
With incredible staffs there. So we have a good vertical team, 5 through 12.
Oh,
and
great.
McCullough feeds the Woodlands High School band.
Okay.
And so we're really proud about the success of our team.
Oh, great. Well, and that's what it's all about, as a team.
Absolutely.
Okay, so in that situation, then, if you have 7th and 8th grade, like for instance, in my school, we have 6th, 7th, and 8th. So I start my beginners in 6th grade in those small classes of 10 to 20 kids, maybe, and as small as a class of 3. So I get pretty close with them, and I get to know them really well, and so it's really easy for me to just go on to 7th grade. And so you have to build the relationships very quickly. How do you do that?
Yes, and so our kids come to us not knowing us as their teacher at McCullough, and so we first off create this word called McCullough style.
Okay.
And we acknowledge that our kids are coming from different schools, and that everybody did their way. But when we get to McCullough, we're going to go McCullough style, and that's the terminology that we use to teach them the ownership of excellence. So it's kind of that tricking kids with something cool.
I love that. I'm stealing that. I'm going to definitely use that.
And so we'll say, oh, that's not McCullough style. That might have been your old school, but here we're doing it different. And so it teaches them that new terminology, and they buy in. They're little kids. They're whatever makes them feel special. So that term has become very popular in our daily teaching, and it has to do with musical excellence, but it has to do with behavior too, and it has to do with relationships too. So
now, in my school, a lot of times I get to the point where it's, they're 6th grade, they're little babies, they're sweet, they're still scared of us. 7th grade, now they're in the big band, I don't know what's going on, and they're still getting their feet wet because there's older kids in the group with them now too. Then when they get the 8th graders, a lot of times they're like, I'm the king of the hill now, I'm really cool, and I'm always like, guys, you're not cool, you're gonna go on next year. And then they go on next year, I see them in high school band, and they're back down, and that happens in every level. Does that happen in your program with the 2 years, and then high school?
Somewhat. The 7th graders come in, and most of them, just like in your beginner classes, have never been in full band before.
Sure.
And at McCullough, all of our bands are full band. So that's a whole new thing, which goes into building leadership. So the 8th graders have to learn and understand their responsibility to help the 7th graders in that transition, help them to feel welcome, help them to feel a part of something special. And that's where I feel like the relationships part is just so important. So with my top band, I really work hard on building leadership skills with my 2-year top band kids. And I just call them the leadership team. There's no special name, there's no elections, there's no titles, because every single one of them has to have that accountability. And I've done this year after year after year. I think that's created a culture that has helped us be more successful.
And how large or percentage-wise is that leadership team?
About 20 kids usually.
Okay. And your program is how large?
We have about 360.
In the 7th and 8th grade?
Yes, huge.
Wow.
But I should say our school is huge. We have 2,200 kids at McCullough Junior High, so our school is huge.
Bigger than some high schools.
Bigger than some high schools. Okay. Our band program about 360.
Okay.
So in my top band, I work on this leadership team, giving them responsibility without it seeming like a job. And we talk about it in we start talking in January to the 8th graders. Now, 8th graders, are you teaching 7th graders how we do it at McCullough, what the expectations, so they can keep our tradition going? Oh, they sit taller. And then the 7th graders are like, huh?
Right.
I have to keep this going
Yes.
without these kids sitting ahead of me. So I start to talk about it more and more. Then by the end of the school year, that's something we talk about every day.
So you're not only building, when we first started this conversation, I was thinking a lot of your relationships with the students and the culture that you're building, but you're saying a lot of that is you're teaching the students how to build relationships with each other.
Exactly.
That's a really interesting way to think.
Exactly. And remembering that they are coming from 4 different schools, so they don't all know each other. And so, and now the ones that have come from the same schools, they do, and they're already friends from kindergarten. But when you consider that, I don't know this person sitting next to me, even though I'm the same age. So I work with those leaders and build my relationship and their trust in me, but then they have to keep going with that. We, for example, right outside the band hall, we have the parking lot. That's probably like every school, and we have some red benches. The red benches are very famous for the McCullough Band because we have chats out there. And I will take, when school first starts, I will take the 7th graders out and I'll say, okay, 7th graders, it's a big deal. And I will take a few of my leaders who have volunteered and I'll bring them out to the red benches and I'll leave. And I trust my leaders to say, okay, here's what's going to happen. Here's what's going to stress you out. Here's what's going to overwhelm you. And I trust them. Usually I'll be around the corner.
Right.
So I can
just
make
to
sure.
make sure.
But we have the red bench chats outside. And
that's a great thing, too, because you're showing your leaders that you trust them a lot.
Exactly.
And one thing that I heard from somebody at some point is how Disney does their promotions. They always do their promotions or their commercials or any of their TV shows. The people that are the audience, the people that are on the camera are a year older than they are. So that's you're doing the exact same thing. So because kids relate to a kid that's just old enough to be able to impart their knowledge and their brains are going. So you're doing a really interesting thing there. That's amazing.
And I think that it's important. It helps them learn leadership skills for high school. And we start talking about that too, and I'll say every drum major from the Woodlands High School band has sat in this band hall. Who's that going to be in 3 years? So I'll start to get that all going to, keep them thinking about high school band for
right,
one,
of course.
so retention.
Yeah, right.
And just keep them thinking about, especially the kids in my top band, they are going to be the leaders. So I nurture my relationships with those leaders, and then they will build that in. Now I'm going to say that my favorite time to build relationships with kids is in sectionals, and I know lots of different people do sectionals different ways, but I find that sectionals are the time, that's the heart and soul of my band program, because I can break it down and talk to my kids about my 2 beagles, and I was running late this morning because my beagles, wouldn't do their business outside. So I get very personal, and they know I'm a dog mama, and they know I went to UT, and they'll talk about the game. So sectionals are the time that we can break it down, and I try to find out.
You're trying to get those, and you didn't get those moments with them, like maybe I'll call it a traditional setting is.
Yes.
So that's what the times when you get those.
Exactly, where you get to know your 6th graders. I don't get that opportunity. So
just to reference it, if our listeners are really interested in our leadership episode with Jeff Jones, we had a podcast a couple weeks ago with him. And do you know Jeff?
Yeah, great guy.
Fantastic at Jones Leadership. And he was really talking about how to start a leadership program. And I'm learning so much about what we're doing here. Now tell me, how does it start for you? Let's go back to square one.
Okay.
Because I'm just going to go ahead and guess your relationship building doesn't start when they enter 7th grade. It probably starts before that. So how do you go into your feeders?
Oh, well, I go as often as I can. Scheduling is tight and difficult sometimes. Our school actually is on block schedule, so I have heavy teaching days and lighter teaching days, so I do have some flexibility. We do some fun things. We invite our 6th graders to come play with us at a junior high football game. that's a big hit. And I try very hard to get to know them, but individually it's impossible to do that. So me and my staff, who I have to give a shout out to, Andrea Marr and Penny Leapst, we are affectionately known as the band ladies at McCullough. We've been working together for 10 years.
Oh, that's
so
really great.
It's incredible.
This is a team.
We're a great team. And so we go to the intermediates and we try to visit with those just so it's familiarity of the face, if nothing else, and welcome them. And we visit as many times as we can. We do audition those sixth graders individually, one-on-one. So that's quick, but we try to build a quick relationship there and get them excited about coming to McCullough. But the minute they enter, just like every band program, we have the stand signs with their name on it, and I have all kinds of name games for myself that try to learn their names very fast because, gosh, coming to a junior high is hard enough for those kids. But it's really as soon as we can start sectionals that I can really get to know them. And a lot of times I will stop my teaching, more in sectional than full band. I will stop my teaching and just let the 8th graders talk to the 7th graders. Or I'll find by third week of school, I'll have some 8th graders who have done peer tutoring plans with those 7th graders. I'll help you learn that third octave, the clarinet scales, or and again, this is not happened overnight. It's just a culture that has now been created. And
but you have to start somewhere.
You do, and now my current 7th graders are, sending me these little emails this summer, so excited to lead the band again, and I'm just like, that's what it's all about.
See, and I'm really glad that we're getting to talk about this because I felt this year in my program, one of the things that I just couldn't figure out, there was so many things that were not where I wanted them, and we were having a really rough year as a transition year for us, and I was talking with my assistant AJ Pisani about it, and what's the deal, and it used to be so great, and like 3 years ago it was so awesome, and I could build those relationships, and then I realized I wasn't maintaining those relationships. I just thought we were great and that culture was there. So a lot of what you do is maintaining those relationships and going forward.
Yes, and referring to that as part of the success.
McCullough style.
McCullough style, and referring to it in daily teaching and talking about how, not to bring competition in, but how, last year we had 3 flutes make region band. What are we going to do this year? Are we going to exceed that? Are we going to try to keep? And I talk about that and then let them make the decisions, although I've manipulated the whole thing, So I try very hard to talk about continuing the culture of excellence and doing your very best, and caring about each other. And I think one thing that I can attribute to our success at Honor Band yesterday is that my students cared so much about one another, and socially I believe they've made friends that are going to be lifetime friends, and that's what we're all doing here in band. That's what we know.
We're just trying to get that across to them.
Yes.
I met all my friends are from band and from my experience in music, and most importantly, I met my wife through music.
Yay!
Yeah.
And I met my husband, so.
And that's how most of us are. And
I
think it's a really great way to teach them. A good friend of mine, Gabe Musella, we were talking, he's going to be on the show a little bit later.
Fantastic.
And he was talking to me when we were doing some prep for it, that we're educating through music. And I can't wait to talk to him about that later on, but that resonated with me so much. I'm going to think about that way the rest of my life. And that's what we're doing here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Now, how does this go on from here to when they go on to high school, when they leave you? How do those relationships, how can you carry on the relationship you've built to the guys or girls next that they're going to be their teachers?
Well, we are a one feeder high school, so McCullough kids go to the Woodlands, and that culture of excellence bleeds through, and there's a supportive culture there, just in the fact that there's a lot of siblings, they know, and so we talk a lot about how you guys just keep this going when you get to high school. And it just kind of works. It works that way. Yeah. And of course I cheer them on and with all their high school stuff and see them as much as I can, but mostly just I'm still trying to nurture the incoming and just keep that whole thing going. So it's this will be my 28th year to teach, and I think this is one thing that I wish I had known so many years ago, to just stop and not worry about the website or the grades or the whatever new training or whatever is coming our way. And not that T-test is not super important, but golly, I got to get in there with my kids. And
That's
for
the most
me,
important.
when I get out of the office and get on the podium, everything's better. All that stress of the stuff that's hard about teaching, let's be honest, it goes away because you get there with the kids, see their eyes, see their faces.
I always tell the kids that you guys have no idea how much you can affect my mood and completely flip it. There's many times when I'm frustrated or whatnot, and there's not much. I mean, I'll just stay frustrated. But something about the energy that you use and the commitment and love that you put into those children, and then when they give it back to you in their little way, it just changes everything. And now we're going to get into an emotional moment here.
Oh,
and
yeah.
We can't cry on camera.
Right. No. I've had a few tears already this convention, so that's good. The good tears, the good ones.
Well, can you give me an example of maybe a specific student in their success that you've had and felt have really been impactful with your relationships or each other's relationships?
Sure, there's so many. I would hate to single out if they were ever to watch this, but I had some special relationships this year. 2 of my soloists, and I had some incredible soloists in our program this year. But who would the moments that we would have personally, where they would come in during lunch or come in when they knew they could catch me by myself, and ask me, is there anything I can do to help my section? Or they would ask me, hey, I'm worried about the third trumpets. I'm worried about the second clarinets. Is there anything I can do to help? And that extension of the pride and the accountability. And you know what? We'd sit down and talk about it with the score and say, yeah, actually, can you? And the next day we have an advisory that those leaders would work with those kids struggling or call their own sectional or call their own thing. And I would watch that from afar and just know that this experience in my relationships and helping their leadership is going to change the world. I mean, and gosh, we need that.
Yes.
So that's the good stuff. And I do believe, that those kids and I'll hear about their weddings and I'll hear about their children being born, and because we've connected in a musical way that doesn't ever go up. That doesn't go away. It doesn't matter if you're 12 or if you're 50. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
well, now, how does this translate to your relationships with parents? How do you build relationships with them?
Well, I think that age and experience always helps.
I've ticked over into the year where I'm not as scared. I'm just going for
It's
it,
hard.
and I just have to say what is the truth and go from there.
It's hard.
How do you build the relationships only being with them for 2 years?
Really, really good communication. Lots of good communication. We have a very supportive administrative staff too, with good communication. But I think that it's just being honest and professional. Sometimes even if they don't like the honesty, they'll respect it. Kids are about to find out about band placement coming up. That's always a tough time. And I tell the parents, I'm a professional. I care about your child. I am never going to do something to hurt your child. You have to trust me. And I say that all the time. You have to trust me.
Yes.
And they kind of, okay. And so the parents are right there, and they're our number one supporters and number one cheerers, and I have parents beating down the door to be chaperones, and they want to cheer on their kids.
Yeah.
So I think what I work really hard is to teach the parents that what we're doing it is family, it is team effort, it's community, and they're totally bought into that, and they're proud for their kids to be in band. And the parents who are like, whoa, didn't know band was this was a big deal. I hook them up with older parents, the same thing. I do that same thing I do 7th and 8th graders. I hook up the parents and say, hey, can you talk to this family? They don't understand that. Let them know it's all going to be worth it. And I tell, just hang in there. It's all going to be worth it. So good communication, but experience certainly does help with that, because I'm going to say my best suggestion on parent conflicts or parent tension is to pick up the phone and not email.
Right.
Pick up the phone, let them hear your heart. And that's something that took me a long time to get to because it's scary. You don't want to be in a conflict it's way easier to type out the email and push send, but to pick up the phone makes a big difference, and I'll do that a lot. And the band ladies in our staff, we'll put it on speaker and say, you're on speaker with all the band ladies, let's have a conversation, upfront and honest, full disclosure, and that, I think that honesty, they know that we care. They know that we care. And that's really what any parent wants, is for someone to care about their child.
Sure. Yeah, like when I always tell our kids when we're about to go on a trip or whatnot, that it's always a strange experience for me that these people are trusting their most precious thing in their world to really, in some ways, a stranger.
Right.
So I have to understand, but again, it's a trust. It's a trust that we're trying to help make their kids better people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on. I have learned so much, and I cannot wait to have you back on.
Oh, I'd love to.
And I must admit, I'm probably going to be texting you a couple times and asking you a couple questions. I'd love to get to know you a little bit more and have you back on the program again.
Sure,
so,
it's my pleasure.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.